Welcome to Community Storytelling Season 3. Linda Lester, our sponsor. We love her to pieces. And Jaco Art House behind us with these lovely canvases. And today, such a special guest. I've actually known him forever. And you know him, and you may not even realize you know him. You get mail from him at least once a year, sometimes more. Larry Stone, your tax guy, the tax assessor. Hi, Larry.
How you doing?
I might have to call you Dapper Larry. You look so wonderful.
Well, I'm a hard-working bureaucrat, you know, so I have to dress like this when I'm at work.
And I'm about to ask you about that hard-working bureaucrat stuff. What does the tax assessor do all day? You got a whole department. So
Well,
what
I
do you
can
do?
describe it very simply, but it's a lot tougher to implement than not. The assessor is required, and there's no such thing as a tax assessor in the state of California. It's just the assessor or county assessor. But
Oh, that's right. You're technically
Yeah,
right.
But at any rate, my job, my staff's job, is to value and assess all real and business personal property that is located in Santa Clara County.
So I will ask you again, what do you do all day?
I manage that.
You manage that.
I've been in the real estate business for almost 50 years, both development and investment, but appraisal's different. So I don't do any appraisals. I'd be dangerous if I ever did an appraisal. It would be an instant appeal by the taxpayer that I was assessing.
Got it, got it. Now you started sort of when I started on the radio. I was 1977. I think you started in Sunnyvale City Council 1976.
I was elected in March of 1975.
All right.
And served 16 and a half years as a council member in the city of Sunnyvale, including a couple terms as mayor in the 1980s.
And then you went over to the county and you were the assessor, and you have been the assessor for how many decades?
24 years.
Does anybody run against you?
Well, occasionally, yeah. I mean, I've been elected 11 times to 16 years at the city council in Sunnyvale, and now 24 years as the assessor. So I've been elected 11 times. Only 5 times have I been opposed.
Well, and you know, it's funny because I'm at so many different events with you, and as soon as they say Larry Stone, we just had an event at KCAT, said Larry Stone, everybody's booing. The truth of the matter is, everybody loves you.
Well, thank you.
I mean, and I know that because I'm at so many events with you. Everybody loves you and wants to talk to you. But before we talk about some of that good stuff, tell us a funny story. Did you ever have anybody pay their taxes with pennies? I mean, how many thousands of pennies would they need?
Not pennies, but we had somebody who delivered, crumpled up, each one of them crumpled up a whole pile. I mean, it was like 3 foot high of dollar bills.
Hope you got a picture of that.
Yeah, we got a picture of what the tax collector did. The tax collector is not what the tax collector bills the property tax and collects the money, and I just determine the value, so I'm not important. It's
I don't know. You're pretty important. You're determining the value.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever think you would be determining the value of millions of dollars for each home?
I never thought I'd be the assessor, to tell you the truth. I love running for office, and so I was termed out for the second time after 4 terms with the city of Sunnyvale. And a good friend of mine called me up and said, you know, the assessor's retiring in Santa Clara County. Why don't you run? And I said, well, why would I want to be the assessor? And he said, well, because you know how to get elected because you've done it, and you know real estate because you've been in it. And I thought, I love running for office. I'd rather run than serve, but don't tell anybody that. And so I decided to run more on the basis of just because I love to run for office.
But when are you going to call it a day? You're 60 plus. I can say that because I'm 60 plus.
70 plus.
Well, I was being
kind. To me, you know?
We go way back. I was being nice.
That's right.
I mean, when are you just, your lovely wife, Carmen, is retired.
Yeah.
You have wonderful grandchildren, Tata.
Yeah.
And I mean, when are you just going to call it a day?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I love doing this. I have a very good staff that makes me look better than I deserve, and that's okay too. And I like, you know, I love politics. I love events. You know, I love.
And you're at them all the time.
I love chicken dinners. I love speeches, even if they're too long. I love, you know, I just love doing that. So it's not hard for me. A lot of politicians, they have to do that, you know, to stay relevant. But they really don't like it, and you can tell. I like it. I sign up for everything. And so it becomes easy. You know, to do something you like is easier than to do something that you think you have to do.
Right, right. And I think really the only local thing you ever lost was the A's stadium that you worked so hard on.
Well, worked first the Giants.
That's true.
I chaired the first group when I was mayor of Sunnyvale, the initiative, the ballot measure to bring the Giants down here, getting very close to passing. It was a 5-city consortium: San Jose, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, and Milpitas.
Where was the stadium going to be?
It was going to be not too far from where the Levi Stadium is today, but it was closer to Highway 237. But it was a 4-city consortium, and it was a 1% utility users tax, and it came that close to passing. In fact, it passed in San Jose, but didn't carry enough in the other 4 cities for it to pass. So Susan Hammer then became mayor, and she was intrigued by the fact that the voters in San Jose had voted to tax themselves to build a ballpark for the San Francisco Giants. The economy tanked in the early 1990s, so this next ballot measure failed quite handily.
So, and then of course the A's stadium.
And then I got the A's and worked with them for over a decade. And the San Francisco Giants just stopped that from happening.
Yeah.
And then the 49ers came to me in the early, about 2004, I guess, and they said, we understand you know something about stadiums and ballparks. I said, yeah, what I know is failure.
Yeah. So they left you out of this one, huh?
And they said, well, would you help us find a site? And I said, sure. So we looked at the site at the fairgrounds. We looked at a site over at San Jose State near Spartan Stadium and the municipal ballpark there. And then looked at a site along 237. Then they looked at Santa Clara. And they said, what do you think? And I said, well, if you can make it happen in Santa Clara, that's by far the best site. But understand, the politics in Santa Clara is not like the politics in San Jose when it comes to this stuff.
That's true.
And they were able to get it done and took it to the public, and it passed.
So how did you get into this life of politics? You are such a wonderful advocate for women, and you don't have daughters, you have sons.
Right.
You have a wonderful wife, of course, but you are one of our fiercest advocates in this county, I believe. Where did you get all that from?
Well, I grew up in a political family. My dad was very involved in politics. He actually ran for the Democratic Party nomination for Congress before I was born, I think. And he lost by 9 votes in the primary. And so I asked him one time, I said, Dad, how come you never did this again? And he said, I figured it out that I was a better kingmaker than a king. But it was always special for me because, as early as I can remember, I had politicians, significant ones, around my house. And he used to say we have 2 religious holidays in the Stone family: the opening day of baseball and election day. And he would write an excuse for me for school on those days. So there were special days for me. I could spend the whole day with my dad doing something that we both liked to do, and that was baseball and politics. So that's how I got into it.
Okay, let's bring your mom into this, because the way you treat women and the way you respect women and look up to women, that had to come from your mom.
That's all my mom. My mom was an original feminist about 30 years before the term was coined. During World War II, she ran a turret lathe at the Boeing Airplane Company while the men were all at war. And she was proud to say from that day on and for the rest of her life that she produced every man in the Boeing plant. She ran her own business until she was 80. And she was very proud that a woman could do anything that a man could do. So I grew up in that environment a long time before it was, savvy, I guess, to be.
And we love you for it. I got another big question. I know you stayed at a very famous house once. We're going to get to that in a minute. You're listening to Community Storytelling with our County Assessor Larry Stone. I'm Lissa Kreisler, and we'll be back after we take a tour of Leicester Square. Hi, it's Lissa Kreisler. I'm at Leicester Square right here at the corner of Blossom Hill Road and Los Gatos Boulevard. A lot of fun things to do. Ken!
Lisa,
I didn't
so
even
nice to see you.
finish my sentence. I'm so surprised to see you. What are you doing here?
Well, we live close by, and we're taking Rocky to the vet today.
So do you have time for a cup of coffee at Phil's with me afterwards?
Sure. Is it your treat or mine?
It's definitely your treat.
And Rocky's coming too.
Good with me. I am so glad to run into you at Leicester Square. It's one of my favorite places.
It's one of my favorite places too, and we've been to Varenza and Super Duper and Phil's, and we love going here.
And so you know where I live, I have no flowers, so I come here to Leicester Square to enjoy all the flowers. They're gorgeous. So the motto here that Linda Lester coined is meet me at the square, or meet us at the square, or meet your besties at the square. I meet everybody at the square. It's Leicester Square in Los Gatos.
Come on by, and cheers.
Yes. Well, welcome back to Community Storytelling. I'm Lissa Kreisler. We've got Larry Stone with us. And yes, you are so involved in politics. Just tease me now with just some of the very famous people you've met along the way.
Oh boy, well I was looking today, I have a picture of Joe Biden and me together in 1988.
1988?
We're both much thinner and much younger. And so he signed that for me when he was running for a short time as president in 1988. And then I have one that was taken about 4 years ago. And it's really cool because of all the people running for president, Joe is the one I know the best. I'm going to meet Mayor Pete tomorrow night, so I'll see what he's like. I'm impressed with him. But so, you know, I've met a lot of people, I mean, in politics.
The Obamas?
Yeah, met Barack Obama.
And well enough to like sit there and have a little conversation, or just at the plane when he's walking down the stairs?
No, I mean a short conversation.
Yes.
The biggest of all was Bill Clinton. You know, I got to know him very well. I see him occasionally every 2 or 3 years when he's out here. But when I was mayor of Sunnyvale, I got a call one day from the governor's office in Arkansas, and she said, this was 2.5 years before Clinton was elected. And she said, the governor's going to be out in Silicon Valley. Would you co-host an event for him in Los Altos Hills? We've got a nice home. And I looked at my calendar, because we didn't have cell phones then, and I'm a baseball fan, as I just said, and I had an A's game that night, and I said, geez, I have another commitment. She said, I'm sorry, and she hung up. She called me back a couple weeks later, the same woman, and said, we're having a difficult time getting people, you know, to this event. Well, who the hell knew who Governor Clinton was,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And would you help us get the right people there? She said, I know you have another commitment. You go to it. So I started calling people. I was like pulling teeth. You know,
really?
Susie Wilson and I were calling people, and it was kind of like, you know, who? The governor of Arkansas? Why are you doing this? But they would ask me, are you going to go? So what could I say? I want you to go to an event that you don't want to go to, and I'm not going to be there. So I said yes.
So you missed a baseball game that night.
I missed the baseball game. Clinton says to me as I'm going out the door, he said, I'm staying at the Cabana Hyatt in Palo Alto. Would you like to have breakfast with me tomorrow? And I said, sure. I get in my car, I turn on the radio, and it's the night Nolan Ryan pitches his record-breaking 6th no-hitter.
Oh.
I am livid. I'm screaming at Carmen when I get home. I can't believe that I missed a no-hitter.
To hang out with some governor.
Yeah, but with a no-name governor that nobody knew. I go down the next morning to the Cabana Hyatt, and I have 2 unused tickets, and I said to him, I want to show you what I did. And he goes, oh, like this. When Nolan Ryan retired, probably 6 years later or something, I get a handwritten note from Clinton saying, will you forgive me now?
What a great story.
Never forgot it.
And you know, I've been in your house before, and you've got that wonderful office with a wall of pictures. Yeah. And you know, you should have put those 2 tickets with one of Bill Clinton's pictures. You know? And the note, you should have done that. You still have time if you can find it someplace.
Well, I didn't think he would be anybody. So.
Well, he finally was somebody, and you got to go to the White House.
That's right.
So how did you even get the invite? And did Carmen get to go too?
Yeah. Well, he wanted to make sure that we had a chance to go to the White House before he left office, but it just kind of got put off. So about a month before he actually left, we got an invitation to spend a night with the Clintons in the White House.
And was it just you, or did he invite a whole bunch of people that night?
There was only a couple folks there. Well, Hillary's mother was there. Okay. Hillary, Chelsea, a friend of Chelsea's. And,
wow.
And Clinton's freshman college roommate, a guy by the name of Tommy, I don't remember his last name. And they were hilarious. And they started telling stories about being in the dorm at Georgetown I mean, I couldn't repeat some of them, you know.
I don't think I would have gone to bed that night.
Well, I didn't get to bed till about 2.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they stayed, you know, I mean, you never know. We're on the 3rd floor of the White House, a place they call a solarium, which is like a large family room.
That's and the private quarters on the 3rd floor.
Private quarters on the 3rd floor. And so they came in, and I didn't know Hillary at all. I'd met her a couple times, but she had no idea who I was. And so she kind of asked Bill in a very nice way, and I can't do it as nice as she did, but who are these people?
Why are they here with my mother?
Right. And Bill said, Larry was with me in Silicon Valley before anybody else was. And her demeanor just changed. She was like, okay, now I understand who's in my family room, you know. And we stayed up. Hillary went to bed about 1, and I have a picture of Chelsea and Chelsea and Bill and me at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd floor of the White House.
Were you all wearing suits?
I was wearing, a
You
tie
were?
because I went out that night.
Okay.
So it was Christmas time. And so they went out to a dinner, so Carmen and I went out, and then we met back at the White House.
So you're all dressed up in the White House. Okay. That
Yeah,
always just
yeah.
makes me laugh when I see people like that.
And, you know, and what I remember about this is they kept bringing in cherry pie. And Bill likes cherry pie, and so he ate a
Obviously.
lot out of cherry
Oh,
pie.
my goodness.
And then the governor of California, remind me who it was at that
Was
time.
it Duke Majan?
No, it was
Schwarzenegger?
no,
Wilson?
no, between them.
Brown? How
No,
many
the
were?
one during the energy crisis here. The one that got one that got impeached. Gray Davis.
Yes, thank you.
So in the middle of this thing, Gray Davis calls. And so this woman comes in and said, Mr. President, you got a call. And so he answers the call. And it was during the energy crisis. And so Gray was, you know, I mean, they were, you know, we had blackouts and brownouts and
Yes,
stuff
I
like
remember
that. So he
well.
was asked for the president's help. So
At
the
night.
president's on the phone, which I have a photo of him on the phone. And he goes to me, your governor, you know, your governor. Never said a thing. I took the photo and then I sent it to Gray later on. And I said, I was in the White House the night you called to talk about the energy
I'm surprised
crisis
he would
we
take
were
that
having.
kind of a phone call at night when he's socializing.
Yeah,
Well, he liked to talk.
there was another call that I guess was more confidential than Gray, and so he took it in the,
Oh, he left,
in the
okay.
hallway. In fact, he was dressed for dinner when he went out and took the call in the hallway. He came back and he had jeans and a sweatshirt on, and so I said, I knew they're going to be here because you never know if they're going to get up and leave
Right,
after,
right.
after 10 minutes.
So, do you sleep in the Lincoln bedroom?
We slept in what's called the Queen's bedroom. We were in the Lincoln. We had passes, and this is before 9/11. I'm sure you
Yeah.
can't do it today. We had passes that allowed us to go anywhere in the White House unescorted. And the only rule was we couldn't go in the Oval Office unless the president invited us in, but if he wasn't there, we went in there. So we're wandering around at 10 o'clock at night,
Unbelievable.
you know, on the 3rd floor, 2nd floor, in the green room and the red room.
But there got to be
and
Secret Service all over.
one guy was there.
Just one guy.
Yeah, it was a Marine. And there's a landing. I don't know if you've ever been in the White House, but
No.
there's a landing. And so I wanted to have Carmen take a picture of me with they have these big paintings of presidents. And of course, when you're a Democrat, you know, you have Roosevelt and you have Truman and all that kind of stuff. And then when a Republican comes in, they get off to the side and you get through. So I wanted to take a photo of me. So I started to walk up about the 3 stairs so I could get the landing.
Sure.
And this Marine came from nowhere and he said, stop. I said, oh, okay. And then he pushes some buttons and he said, okay, go ahead. And I said, what is it? He said, well, that was the stairs to the private quarters.
Oh.
And I guess the floor was wired. And so had I stepped on that thing,
yes.
I don't know what would have
Yes.
happened. So they were very cordial, but we, you know, ran into the dog. What was the dog that would?
Oh, I don't remember his dog.
Yeah, I mean, it was just glorious time.
And food, the food was good?
Yeah.
You could order what you wanted, or they already had a preset
Well,
meal?
we didn't have dinner there, but we had breakfast the
Yeah.
next morning. And so there's a little card, and you slid it out from underneath the door.
Just like staying at the Hilton.
Yeah, and then when you got there, so I got up and I was in the same room that they make it into, and I said, well, is the president here? He said, oh no, the president's gone. And I said, well, I left him last night at 2 o'clock. He said, oh yeah, he was in here about 4:30.
Oh my gosh.
Guy doesn't sleep.
Oh my gosh.
And then I got to work out in this workout room on the same floor.
Oh.
And, but they had to clear that with Hillary. So they called Hillary and said, you know, you can work out as long as Hillary says you can. So I'm there.
Are your parents still alive?
No.
Oh, and they weren't at the time either, because what a story they would have loved.
My mother died that year, and my dad was passed a long time before that. Yeah, my dad would have just enjoyed this. In fact, I got a little choked up. When I
I'm
said
choked
what
up
my
hearing
dad
it.
would believe,
Oh.
having been involved in politics for so long.
My mother was very political, and she taught me to be political. And when you were talking about your dad and your mom, I could see my mom being the sister or something, because she would have fit right in, except for the baseball part.
Yeah.
But election day was like a holiday in our house.
Yeah.
Yes, and I remember at a young age I was working in, I guess now you're all going to know what beliefs I am, but I was the receptionist at the McGovern headquarters.
Oh, really?
Across from St. James Park. I was 16.
Oh, really?
And I remember I used to go down every day, and that was my first taste of politics. Nothing like you, though. Is that probably one of your most outstanding experiences in life, other than, of course, children and grandchildren?
Yeah, I mean, I have had a lot of opportunities. I'll just give you an example. In 1977, the United States Conference of Mayors and the State Department sponsored a trip to Cuba with 32 mayors. So it was a state-sponsored thing. So we flew directly from Atlanta to Havana. Spent a week there. And at the end of the trip, the day before we left, they drove us all around, so we couldn't figure out where we were. Lo and behold, we come across this building, and Fidel Castro's there.
Unbelievable.
And we spent an hour and 20 minutes with Fidel Castro. And Carmen spoke to him in the receiving line in Spanish.
Oh.
And he understood everything I said during that time frame, but he would not respond in English. So whenever there was a lull in this reception, you can imagine there was media there and so forth, he would gravitate toward Carmen. So, I mean,
what
things
a story.
like that.
Your life.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah.
You need to write a book. You need to write a book.
No, I think you've said that to me before. And in fact, a lot of people do. It's just not my, I like to talk. I don't like
We know that,
yeah.
yes. You are a delight. You are a delight. Larry Stone, see, there's so much more than just being the assessor, which you're probably going to be for another decade. Could you have my reappraisal done on my house, though?
That's right.
Oh, boy, community storytelling at its finest. If you have somebody like a Larry Stone and you would love to nominate him or her, it's so easy. You go to kcat.org and you'll be sitting where Larry is. It's that easy. And thank you so much for being with us today on Community Storytelling. I'm Lissa Kreisler.